Yo, welcome back to the Men Who Cry podcast. I'm your boy, Just Richards. Thank you again for listening. Make sure you like, rate, review, share, tell somebody to tell somebody. Go ahead and touch some grass while you're listening to this podcast. Feels good. Thank you again for everyone who decided to listen. I'm coming to you post game after the exciting race war we just experienced. Yes, the race war is over, ladies and gentlemen. The MVP war is won. You have Buffalo moving on to the AFC Championship game. They will be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City after defeating the Baltimore Ravens to a score of 27-25. We will break down this game real quick, but the only thing you really need to break down are Mark Andrews' hands. The only thing that I'm happy about, well, you never know because the internet has lost any type of rationality, that this will not be blamed on the black quarterback who dominates, but the white man who can't catch the football. I don't know what to say there. The game was a good game from both sides. Ultimately, I thought the Bills outplayed Baltimore, simply to the fact that they had no turnovers to 3. And in a game you lose by 2, you can't have those type of turnovers. I thought Lamar was good on this first drive, and then after that, the wheels started to come off. I thought he had the fumble that Von Miller scooped up and the Bills eventually scored on was killer in the first half. Credit to them for coming back in this game and making it a game. But it's one of those things where you just get down so much that it's just impossible to get back. Mark Andrews is going to feel this game for a long time. He had the fumble, the last one that the Ravens had of the game, and then he had the drop in the end zone. He had another drop earlier in the game as well. But yes, this is the game two America's wanted, and one side, unfortunately, of America won again. So shout out to the Bills. They'll be facing the Chiefs, who took on the Texans on Saturday. Handled the game. The game score was a little weird, but the Chiefs scores are always weird at some point. It's never a traditional 21-20 game or 27 24 type of game. It's always in these weird numbers. But the main thing I want to talk about that game isn't actually anything to do with the game, but what has to do with the Chiefs and people alluding to having some type of thought that the game is rigged and that the Chiefs are getting these calls. It's so funny how life repeats itself in such a way, because I'm old enough to remember all these conversations happening about the Patriots. Now, were there a legitimate call that went wrong for the Patriots or went against the Ravens that cost the Raiders a chance to go to the Super Bowl? Yeah, that happened. The Tuck rule that they made up and they eventually took away. It was one of the most blatant bad calls you can go in NFL history to go against. It's that one and probably the one on the Saints against the Rams to help them get to their first Super Bowl with Sean McVay. Bad calls happen all the time. Great teams always put people in bad positions to make bad calls. There's even a video circulating around of the last time the Patriots went to the Super Bowl. It was the game against Kansas City in Kansas City, and there's a call where Chris Jones gets a roughing the passer call on Tom Brady, and it looked like a very phantom call. I will say this: your boy Mahomes is flopping, and again, the quarterbacks, the smart ones are always know how to take advantage of rules. That's kind of the part of the game. If you don't understand the rules fully, then it's hard for you to be able to get this thing going. And he is a guy who dances on the end of the sideline, and he flops when you get close to him, and then he gets called for the flags. And as you've seen in today's game, someone like Lamar, for whatever reason, doesn't get the same call. There were 2 different instances I would at least felt warned to the flag. I understand that you're running at the same time. Both times, Lamar was well out of bounds when he got hit by the defender. But that's what he does. Even the one with Will Anderson hit him underneath the chin, that's part of the game. And you have to be understanding and recognizing that that is how this is going to go. They are going to ref your quarterbacks differently. And this goes both ways. Okay. Especially for someone like CJ Stroud, who gets the same protections that Mahomes gets. Mahomes is just seems to be flopping. Now, that's something I want to essentially get out of the game. And it's just going to be kind of hard to kind of happen because they are protecting these quarterbacks so much. But the Chiefs aren't getting calls. They're making plays and putting teams in positions to make bad plays. Do things work out in their favor that you're like, yo, how is all these things happening? Sure. You can't script a dude like jumping and standing out of bounds with Isaiah Likely. You can't script you blocking. Mind you, this is multiple field goals this Chiefs blocked. They blocked the field goal against the Ravens, not the Ravens, I'm sorry. They blocked the field goal against the Broncos at home. That won the game. And then they had a block against the Texans last game too. So clearly they're coaching this stuff. And ultimately what I feel like is this. And this kind of ties back into the Ravens game as well. Mark Andrews is an all-pro tight end. He is I don't think Mark Andrews will be a Hall of Famer, but I think his number will probably be retired by the Ravens. Potentially. I mean, he's probably going to go down as the greatest tight end they've had. It's Ozzie Newsome, him, or Shannon Sharp, basically. And so he's almost like a Ring of Honor guy that you would have. This guy obviously knows how to catch the football. And I think what happened is he got tight. Simple. I think he got tight. I think he was running backwards, and I think he lost balance, didn't look the ball in, lost it. This guy obviously can catch the ball. The reason why I say that, and the reason why I almost feel like the reason why it's even harder to beat the Chiefs now than it was, even when they had teams that I think a lot of people think were more talented than this one. Like, I think the most talented Chiefs team they had was the one that beat the San Francisco 49ers the first time with Garoppolo down in Miami with Tyreek Hill. Like, they actually, Travis Kelce was like in his prime physically. Like, the reason why I always feel like those Chiefs teams were like more talented, but these Chiefs teams are hard to beat is because there's no fear. Like, they know what they are doing, essentially. Okay. This is very much the do your job version. Is just do your job. Right. Because ultimately what ends up happening is it's not oftentimes the team that makes the most plays, it's the team that makes the most mistakes. Okay. Again, the Bills won a game by 2 points, us with a team that had multiple turnovers, multiple drop passes, and should have tied the game. And they won by 2 points. Again, they did not turn the ball over at all. And it had multiple scoring drives. Like, it sometimes just comes down to the mistakes that the other team makes. And I feel like we don't give teams credit for that in that way. It just kind of comes down to like, oh, they should have done this, should have done that. Like, that's kind of part of how this thing gets done. And so, but yeah, I'm watching Mark Andrews on the screen right now, and yeah, he's gonna have a tough time with this bad boy. But yeah, that's the AFC Championship matchup. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen for the fourth time. These guys have played 8 times already, 8 times, and this is going to be maybe their greatest one yet. We will see. We'll talk more about that when we get closer to the end of the week about that matchup. It really is our Brady Manning of this generation. These guys are just gonna constantly keep running into each other over and over and over again. You'll see like a Lamar pop in one time, Burrow's popped in once, but it's been these two dudes for a while. These two franchises. So we'll see how that goes there. On the other side, we got the Blackity Blacks going at it. Yes, we have the all black NFC title game. With the Eagles will be taking on the Commanders in this year's NFC title game. The Commanders look pretty unstoppable against the Detroit Lions, winning 45-31. again, another game where you just see how much the turnovers kill you. But I think the biggest thing now is the fact that it just shows you how much just ownership, having good ownership, like solves everything. Like, you're not going to convince me that Dan Snyder just not being there just doesn't affect things. They haven't been in the NFC Championship game in my lifetime. I'm getting old, man. Like, there are only so many people on the team that were born. They were saying before the last time the Washington franchise got to the NFC Championship game, and it's through blackness because Jaden Daniels is here. I think it's not going to be too hyperbolic to say that this guy's already a top 6, top 7 quarterback in the league, because if you look at it, there have been plenty of other rookie quarterbacks to make the NFC Championship game. None of these guys, or championship game of their respective leagues, no one has made the Super Bowl. But the fact is that they're able to lean on him. I mean, no one thinks Washington's defense is good at all. You know, it's basically on Daniels, who's been cooking everyone. And the fact that he's already this good this early, got the team there, it's had to have revitalized that franchise in such a way that it's just almost unheralded of what this guy is able to do. I feel bad for my Lions, the team that I was kind of rooting for. But it kind of just goes back to the concept of just when you seemingly not have that dude, man, none of this matters. Like, if you really just went player for player for both teams with the Commanders and the Lions, once Daniels is off the field, right, you probably take him first after what you've seen. You're just taking every Lion. Like, they had so many better players than the Commanders, so many. And turnovers, just injuries to the effect of they ran into a bad matchup with a guy, and that's kind of the other problem with being in Detroit and having the team that they have. Yes, while on that turf, on that field, at home, they're going to score and score quickly and often. But when you turn that around, those same elements for the other team on offense. And if you have the injuries that the Lions had, and they got 2 more guys hurt in this game, you just, at one point, you just realize that these dudes can't stop Daniels. It goes pretty early on. And I think Goff just had a bad time to have a bad time. He's definitely on the tree of Sam Darnold's of I'm still that guy when the lights get a little bit too bright. And for the Lions going forward, this is going to be tough because I do think in football, especially when you don't have like the quarterback, the guy that everyone thinks is like an MVP candidate, the guy who like really, really believe you can go through the playoffs with, it's about the team around him. It's about the players around him, and especially it's about the coordinators. And if the rumors are true and Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson are both going to be gone, you can see Detroit kind of taking a little bit of dip next year. Now, they're too talented for me to think that they'll miss the playoffs. But again, no one really thought the 49ers were going to miss the playoffs, and they did. And it happens time after time. Teams take dips. They lose coordinators. Players get hurt. You could argue they had bad injury luck this year, though, because so many players in their defense got hurt. And it's one thing to think about it in the sense of just, yes, this was a good season. They did whatever they could. But, man, this was a missed moment. And sometimes that's the cruelty of the playoffs. The cruelty of the playoffs, especially in football, is just the finality of it. It is over. You are back down to everyone else. And it's back to the drawing board. And we'll see. The NFC is getting better. Their division is probably still the best division going into next season. Maybe them, and we'll see about the NFC East, whether or not, the Commanders and the Eagles can repeat what their foundation is, and let's see if the Cowboys can bounce back. But this division is nothing to play with. There's no guarantee that these guys even win the division next year. Now, again, with 7 playoff spots, I know they're going to have the number one record again. That offense still seems really good, especially if they can just have a play caller that is good enough. Like, they just have too much talent not to be able to score 25 a game. So we'll see. But shout out to all the Lions. Shout out to the Commanders. We'll be taking on the Eagles that we just previously mentioned. The Eagles took down the Rams 28 to 22. This is one of the things about teams playing outdoors. This is why I thought about the Eagles winning this game, simply because West Coast team traveling east can't stop the run. It's a bad makeup there. And this is essentially how football can be such a brutality sport of I'm moving my man into a place that he doesn't want to be moved. Hella pause. Either way, you have to make holes and creases in order for the running backs to be able to get through the lanes and get touchdowns. And that's basically what Saquon Barkley did. Saquon Barkley was by far the best player on the field. He was dominant from start to finish. The Eagles were able to do whatever they needed to do, kicking the other white man out in Matt Stafford, though. Shout out to the Rams. It seems like LA seemed to rally a little bit around them, with the tragedy that was happening in LA over the past couple of weeks, sorry. And it's something to behold. But I still think their defense is just not up to snuff yet. Like, they've been good since they've won the Super Bowl a few years ago, but you rarely see those drafts kind of taking their toll, and the fact that they just don't have the bodies on defense yet. It's a young defense. Maybe they'll take that next step and really get back to contender status, but I haven't looked at them as being a true contender since they won the Super Bowl back in 21. But that's our matchups. So we will see how it goes. Everything inside of me can't kick the Eagles. I don't want these guys to lose so bad. This is so tough as a Giants fan. It's rough, but we're gonna go with the Eagles. And until I see someone beat these dudes in prime time, I'm always gonna pick the Chiefs, just because I had the Ravens. That was more from heart than head than anything. But if they were knocked out, I thought the Chiefs were gonna take them out. So I'm still gonna go with the Chiefs in this one. But a slight transition over from the Eagles to talk about Saquon Barkley solo, and to pivot also to the fact of this idea of GMing, right? So, just mentioned, hate the Eagles, team I hate the most in almost all sports. I think I hate the Eagles in general, but frankly, these games, these types of moments that the Eagles have, there's no sports. A lot of times, I think the downside, I think, of sports is what happens is that the nerds have gotten too involved. And when I say all this, is that there are stats that I think are important that we have to understand, and stats that we have to look at to see, okay, this is the reason why this is happening, and stats to be able to help us understand. I'm never going to ever question any of us getting smarter. In a world that seems like this getting dumber and dumber by the day, being smart is something very important. And using these numbers to help understand why these things are happening is highly important. But they are numbers to help you verify what your eyes are seeing on the field and the plays that are being made, not the inverse. And I think sometimes for some people, the numbers outweigh the actual production and what we see on the field. When I say all that to say is, I am not going to criticize Joe Shane, the GM of the Giants, for not re-signing Saquon Barkley. The team already signed Daniel Jones. Running backs to that point, you figured you can just draft another guy to come in there. The team was also terrible. It didn't really seem to make a lot of sense to bring him back on a deal. My problem, and it's always been my problem, is the fact that this man was not traded 2 trade deadlines ago. Because, as we've seen, the Baltimore Ravens were very interested in trading for for Saquon Barkley. Now, what was really on the table, how much was happening, no one knows, right? But you clearly see that they were interested in, there's reports that they wanted to trade for him, and then they signed Derrick Henry the next offseason. So clearly they were interested in a running back and had the money to pay him. The fact that that was never done is why this whole thing even got started. And if you're John Mara, fuck all that. You're watching your sworn rival get back to the NFC Championship game and maybe to the Super Bowl on the backs of a player that you basically handed the keys of the franchise to once Eli Manning retired. And now he's killing it with your arch enemy. I don't know how that doesn't get you fired. Straight up. And they're now going to be in a situation where they have to deal with Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts and now Jaden Daniels for combined, that's at least the next 4 seasons, right? And Jaden's going to be the next potential decade. And you're coming into the draft, you're the 3rd overall pick, and you might have to force yourself to draft a quarterback. It is one of the darkest times, I think, in Giants history, just because of how many mistakes have been happening, and the doubling down on mistakes is what's even worse by all this. So, shout out to the Eagles. Shout out to the Commanders. That's going to be our NFC Championship game, and it should be a good one going forward because, Blacks win. Okay, this is the last part of the segment, last part of the show. This podcast is going to be coming out on MLK Day, also Inauguration Day. And I think one of the main reasons why I wanted to start doing this podcast was I wanted to speak two reasons. First was I like having conversations with people, and I think the world of sports is a fascinating way to enter how our society tends to work out. I said this before on multiple episodes. I said this before on multiple occasions, but if you break down the way that sports tends to be working between employer and employee, things that get done, things that get said, things that are allowed, things that aren't allowed, I think it's a very good microcosm of how life actually is overall. And it allows me to speak about a lot of things in life that, while they might not be super taboo, it gives people a better understanding and not close themselves down when they hear these things, especially from my perspective. There's nothing way to put this. This country is extremely divided on the issues of the next incoming president. It seems to be something where people have no real idea how to handle it for those who don't support. And for those who do support, this seems to be moving in line with everything that they want to have in here. And for me, and for sports, and for general, it's important to always keep your leaders and the people that are doing the jobs that they're supposed to be doing accountable. And that is kind of the overall purpose and has been my thought of what media has to be. Media has changed in so many ways in the last 10 years that it's ultimately something that needs to keep evolving and growing, especially around the time where people are not willing to believe in actual facts anymore. I don't really know what to do about that. I don't really know what to say about that. The only thing I'll say about that is on this show, on this pod, as long as I keep doing this, I'm going to give you my honest opinion, but they'll be based in real facts in real time with real fact checks. And I'm willing to have people come in challenging my beliefs, challenging my thoughts, but we will not be challenging facts because essentially they are facts. For those who also understand that it's also Martin Luther King Day, and this country has seen a lot of ups and downs in its history, but the one thing that's never happened is people have laid down. And like how we have tried to whitewash the ideas of Martin Luther King and try to change him into this peace-loving guy, almost a Gandhi-like figure, his beliefs got him murdered. And I feel like that part doesn't get emphasized enough. And so, as he would have done, as he has spoken into the world, into our lives, we have to continue to fight and continue to go and continue to move and continue to be the best version that we can be. So, as my dog just ran by, I started to bark. But again, thank you guys again for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. Again, please make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you give it a bunch of reviews, do all the stuff you got to do, retweet, repost, whatever the is now. Skeet is on Blue Skies. I think I'm about to just try and be on that more actively too. But yeah, all that good stuff, all that good jazz. Hope you guys take care for the rest of the week. Talk to you guys again soon.